Many people believe the man most responsible for the deadlock in Washington is Grover Norquist. He's the lobbyist and conservative activist who managed to get nearly every Republican in Congress to sign the pledge. That is a pledge to oppose any and all new taxes. Steve Kroft asked Norquist about the hold he has over the GOP on last night's 60 Minutes.
A lot of people think you're the most powerful man in Washington.
The tax issue is the most powerful issue in American politics going back to the Tea Party. People say, oh, Grover Norquist has power. No, Grover Norquist and Americans for Tax Reform focus on the tax issue. The tax issue is a powerful issue.
And Grover Norquist joins us this morning from Washington. Good to have you with us. In the American people's mind, as we look at Congress and the way the approval rating has continued to plummet, essentially over the last few months, for a lot of people, this is a failure, the fact that the supercommittee cannot come to some sort of agreement on what to cut here. To you, though, is it a success in that your side, technically that you're backing, or either side didn't give in?
Well, two things. One, the goal of the supercommittee was to reduce spending $1.2 trillion. If they couldn't agree on how to do it, and the Democrats refused to come up with $1.2 trillion in spending cuts, you go to automatic spending cuts across the board. So taxpayers are protected. $1.2 trillion will be saved. What the Democrats wanted to do was raise taxes to pay for the $10 trillion in higher debt that Obama's spending over the last 2 years created. So we're trying to undo a spending mess. The only way to spend less is to spend less. The Democrats want to raise taxes to pay for Obama's larger government. The two parties don't agree.
So is there ever going to be a case where the two parties can agree? Is there any situation? I mean, this is a pretty bad financial situation for this country, and it's not getting any better. And without any compromise, any working together, it doesn't appear that's going to happen. So could there ever be a situation where the sides could come together, both sides giving a little bit?
Well, that's already happened. Remember, the Republicans in the House of Representatives passed Paul Ryan's budget, which over the next 10 years reduces Obama's overspending by $6 trillion. $6 trillion in less spending. What the Republicans and Obama agreed to in August was $2.5 trillion in less spending. So there's been a tremendous compromise. Republicans wanted to reduce Obama's debt by $6 trillion. They agreed, okay, we'll only do $2.5 trillion. Now the Democrats are trying to fight not to do all the $2.5. But there's been a big compromise because the Democrats want to spend more. The Republicans have brought that down a little bit, but not enough.
Not enough compromise. A couple of things that you talked with Steve Kroft about last night, as you said, and we just heard from you in that bite, the most powerful issue, and this is the most powerful issue in American politics. You also said at the end of the piece, and I'm quoting here, talking about how many people you've gotten to sign this pledge and how it's helped them, as you say, if they sign it and keep it, they win the primary, they win the general, they get to govern, and I've helped make all of this possible. If this is about governing, if this is about keeping those seats in Congress and pushing forward with this pledge, there's still not a lot getting done in Washington, even with some of the compromise. So why not push those people to maybe do a little bit more?
Well, of course, look, the Democrats have spent a great deal of money. Bush spent too much, and the Democrats put it into hyperdrive, adding trillions in just a few years to the debt, things that used to take us decades or 100 years to do. We need to bring that spending down. The Democrats want to get the Republicans to raise taxes to pay for their higher spending. The Republican Party has said over the last 20 years, we're not going to raise taxes, and we need to focus on spending. And so that's the difference between the two parties. If you want higher taxes and more spending, vote for the Democrats. If you want less spending and lower taxes, you vote for the Republicans. It's very clear they're going in different directions, and the Taxpayer Protection Pledge allows voters to know who a candidate is. Will he or she put in writing that they won't raise your taxes? Only 3 Democrats have made that commitment in writing. Almost all the Republicans have nationally, but also 13 governors have taken that pledge, and 1,300 state legislators. So anyone who's running for office, ask them if they've taken the pledge. And if you want higher taxes, don't vote for the pledge takers. If you want lower taxes, vote for someone who's taken the pledge.
Grover Norquist, thanks for your time this morning.